warm welcome to the Art Vlog, Art Lovers, with me, George Dopamine. The Art Vlog explores exhibitions and galleries across London, the southeast of England, and sometimes beyond. And we always look at the artist in context, followed by a peek inside the exhibition, and then I share my thoughts on whether this is an exhibition worth visiting or not. And today I'm excited to be heading to the Serpentine Gallery in Hyde Park to visit the new show here by Barbara Kruger called Thinking of You, I mean me, I mean you. Barbara Kruger is a really interesting artist. She was born in 1945 in Newark, and she trained or sort of got her first experience in graphic design before transitioning to art. And her first works, it's fair to say, were very much influenced by people like Magdalena Aberkanowitz. They were textile works and paintings, but she felt frustrated. She had not found her artistic voice, and she actually stopped producing art for a whole year in 1976 before returning with a new signature style which he's been riffing on to this day. This style includes repurposed photographs, often overlaid with very bold text, and it's become much imitated across the world. But she is truly iconic as an artist, and you'll probably be familiar with her works even if you don't know her name. This is the first ever Kruger show I've been to. Kruger herself said, direct address has motored my work from the beginning. I like it because it cuts through the grease. Isn't that a fantastic quote? And so I'm really excited to be approaching the Serpentine Gallery to explore this show, which has transferred from the United States, where it showed at the Chicago Institute of Art, the Los Angeles County Museum, and MoMA in New York. It's now in London, and what's really interesting is it's had to be repurposed to suit each gallery space. The Serpentine itself is obviously a unique space if I just spin you round. And so I'm really excited to see how her bold, brash work will transition to this space. It should be said that Kruger has been seen on t-shirts, on billboards, on buses, as well as on art galleries. So come and join me as we head inside and explore this show.
The minute we step into the first gallery, we're confronted by Kruger's signature style, which is an adaptation of the photo collage, where she takes images which are usually found, they might be found in markets, she might have found them flicking through a magazine or in a newspaper or in a book or even online, and then she superimposes a urgent, often pithy, single word statement or short phrase across these, and it feels as if the artist is directly addressing us. And the work Untitled, That's the Way We Do It, involves a range of boards that you can see here with the iconic hand behind, and they're kind of like appropriations almost of Kruger's own work. There's a bit of a postmodern twist to this, and she always uses sans serif fonts, mainly Futura Bold, Futura Bold Oblique, or Helvetica Ultra Compressed. But there is no doubt that these works create a sense of urgency and a kind of, and also very much for me, and you can see there in the Free the Nipple one, a punk aesthetic which she stayed with her since 1979. And Kruger says that in a sort of circular fashion, my job as a graphic designer became, with a few adjustments, my work as an artist. And this is absolutely no plodding through retrospective. In recent years, as you can see here, the artist has reconfigured her photo collages and animated them as video works. And Kruger calls these works replays. And probably one of her two most famous works that I was certainly aware of is Untitled, I Shop, Therefore I Am, which was initially produced in 1987 and reconfigured in 2019. It's obviously a famous play on Descartes' I Think, Therefore I Am. And the video kind of board seems still. It sits there still, as seems like an original work. Then it shatters into puzzle pieces, as you can see. And then these are reassembled to rebuild the work. And you do have to wait in the gallery to see the full effect of these, which are quite short, and they kind of break down and reconfigure on replay. As well as I shot Therefore I Am, there are 4 other replay works which take an original work throughout the gallery. In our leader, Kruger describes it as evergreen and says, I try to make work about how we are to one another. And that means how we respect one another, how we detest one another, our adorations, our contempt, the centuries of worship and subjugation of brutality and kindness. All of the works start with the original and then dissolve and break down before being brought back together by the artist. And then she offers us alternative phrases to the original phrase, which means that these works are reconceptualizing of the original work, which makes this show in many ways quite exciting. Another really iconic work up there with I Shot Therefore I Am is Your Body is a Battleground, a piece that was produced in 1989. And Kruger explains in the interview in the back of the exhibition booklet that although most of her work is non-issue specific, she says, I don't make works that are about this issue or that issue, it's more of an ongoing commentary. This work was done specifically in the wake of the 1989 March on Washington in relation to women's reproductive rights. It's a very, very powerful work which has as much resonance with the political situation in America today and the overturning of Roe versus Wade as it did back in the late 1980s, although she expands its meaning beyond what we may have understood about it in the 1980s, saying in the interview, it's important for us to realise that the only binaries that count now are digital binaries. It's a very free-floating statement about bodies too, and it can allude to men, women and non-binary people. I believe in the possibility of a multiplicity of bodies, and those bodies are all vulnerable. It's really powerful to see this work. The work Untitled, this work about, is fascinating. It's a really long piece, and obviously I can only bring you the very small extract of this. But Kruger describes it as a running loop or crawl of text that's grown over 3 decades, and apparently it's installed permanently in the elevator, the Los Angeles County Museum of Art in Los Angeles. And as a video, it's been expanded. And she says it's just about work and all the possibilities that can be thought of as labour, ideas, ambitions, fears, and various other commentaries. The work Untitled Forever from 2017 is the work where I think you see Kruger's hand the most in the direct installation of the work within the Serpentine Gallery and the architectural shenanigans of that. It's a work that contains many different quotes, some of which are, or many different words, I should say, some of which are from Kruger, some of which are from others, like Virginia Woolf, or this rather chilling one on the floor from George Orwell, saying, if you want a picture of the future, imagine a boot stamping on a human face forever, which is obviously taken from 1984. These words you're encouraged to believe you're looking at through a magnifying glass with the vast you and then the distorted other words as well. And this is an immersive, overwhelming work where you have to take a long time to kind of readjust to the space and work out what's going on before taking in all of the text. The newest work, a video work on 3 screens, which you can see here, is 9 minutes long. It's really worth sitting through because it's an interesting piece called Untitled No Comment. And she basically, Kruger is looking at the impact of the internet. There's humor in this, and she says actually in a lot of my work, laughter and comedy are important tools as ways of making meaning, adding pleasure and shaming. Obviously I'm not going to show you the whole of this clip, but I will just show you a little bit so you can get a sense of it.
Ladies, housewives, we love the work you do. We venerate you. We love that you cook and clean. Sure, that doesn't take that long. We love that you produce babies with your body, then shape them and nurture them. We tried that. We don't have the patience.
Kruger says in the exhibition guide at the back of the gallery guide that this is obviously a work that reflects and tries to encapsulate her time spent on the internet. She was an early observer of the Chinese app TikTok, for example, and she was listening and watching and being overwhelmed. And she said that one of the things that this work is meant to kind of encapsulate is the idea of our diminishing attention spans. She says this is something that she shares and says, quote, I believe that it's possible to make works and meanings that engage these short attention spans, that encourage them to linger a little bit. And so I think that's really, really interesting in lots of ways, that this is recognizing a trend which scientists in some ways have also recognized, and is trying to actually capture art lovers, as stop them from just coming in and coming out of a work. I was very intrigued by the work Untitled Art Form, which is a very specific text work which uses technology. Art Forum is a magazine which asked a number of artists to produce a response to a prompt on identity. And we see the prompt which was given to the 30 artists come up on the screen. And then we begin to see the changes that Kruger made. And this was actually apparently published in the magazine on the cover as a fold out. And so we see, first of all, the prompt from the magazine, as you can see here. And then over time, the work builds up Kruger's thoughts as she edits and changes the prompt, which was meant to be the inspiration for 30 artists to respond to. And it's quite a powerful work that makes you want to absorb it for the 4 or 5 minutes it's on. The work untitled Our People Are Better Than Your People was produced in 1994, but sadly, it's become more and more relevant in the age of the culture wars and the breakdown of communication between different political groups, whether that's about the rise of Trump in America and the polarization there, or maybe the rise of Brexit and the culture wars in Britain. So it's just a really simple, effective, powerful work. The work Pledge Will Vow takes a pledge of allegiance to the American flag, obviously your last will and testament, and also the wedding vow, and uses technology to cleverly subvert the meaning. She adds in new suggestions. You can see here that this is an example from the wedding vow, and she kind of makes you think about the meaning of these very solemn promises through technology as she develops these, changing words and thinking about meanings.
Well, I'd have to say I left the Serpentine Gallery feeling a little bit flat for reasons I'll explain in a minute. So while I did enjoy this show, it maybe didn't hit the heights that made me put it in the top 10 anticipated shows of 2024. Check out that video if you haven't seen it already. But I'll start with the positives because we're all about celebrating the UK art scene. And the first thing I would say is it's an incredibly generous show. I'd go as far as to say it's going to be one of the best free shows in a public institution in London in 2024. Not only is the admission free, but you get this really lovely booklet, which you can hopefully see there, which puts often those rather measly little booklets that you sometimes get in exhibitions where you pay £20 plus to get into, not naming any galleries there, to shame. It's a really interesting read with a in detail interview with the artist at the back, as well as analysis of all of the works. So that was the first real positive. And secondly, it was great to be immersed in Barbara Kruger's world. It was the first time I'd ever been to a Kruger show. Um, but I'd obviously, like lots of you, were aware of the work and have seen the work in magazines and books and online as well. So it's almost like visiting some familiar friends. And she has a wonderful pithy turn of phrase which is able to dissect certain aspects of society. And I did really like the punk aesthetic of her work as well. So it was great to see that. And finally, I would say that the soothsayer nature of Kruger's earlier work, especially, and the way that she foretold a lot of what was to come, made this a special show. And it had a nice range from the early works when she sort of found this artistic voice, which is hers, through to works produced in 2020, which include a London premiere. So that was a really, those were all reasons why I would recommend that you go to see this exhibition at the Serpentine. Yeah, so if all those positives are true, then why did I feel a little bit flat leaving the gallery? Well, firstly, I think it's because I was really hyped for this show. It was in my top 10 of anticipated shows of 2024, as I've already said. And I'd made the mistake of reading a bit about it before going in, and this hyped me up even more, to the point where as I was walking from the Albert Memorial to the Serpentine itself, I almost felt I was going to have this seminal experience of being inside the internet. And it didn't quite turn out like that. And I think it didn't for a few reasons. One, I think that things are are moving so fast these days in terms of technology, with us only really adopting platforms like TikTok and Instagram Reels and YouTube Shorts in the last sort of 4 years, 5 years, that some of the work already felt a bit slow and dated. Yes, there was sound works being piped in through the ceiling and even into the toilets, and there was a barrage of text, but it actually felt quite slow compared to reality. And I thought that the transition of some of the iconic collage works to these digital forms maybe didn't enhance them as much as the artist had and I hoped. And I would say as well, I really laud Kruger for constantly reinventing and reconceptualizing her work and not allowing it to be static. And I think that does come from the fact that I've always seen her as a part of the punk movement in lots of ways, certainly aesthetically, because she was producing in that late 70s when punk was at its height. And for me, punk was the ultimate analog movement. And I thought that the work No Comment, for example, which was meant to be a reflection on the internet as well as the rise of Trump, and there was some lovely humor in it and the speed and the change. It just didn't feel as intense as it maybe should have done, because reality has actually superseded the work, if you like. And that's very different to the messaging, which makes her seem, as I said, a bit like a soothsayer. And linked to that is the fact that I do think that there are digital artists out there who are capturing what it's like to live now in terms of the speed of change and the political situation a bit more effectively. I might sort of look at United Visual Artists, for example, who I've covered on the vlog, or Liu Yang's Netty Netty. So for me, I kind of felt that in some ways there was other work out there which is capturing what it's like to live in this very fast modern world better. So that's the second reason why it was tiny bit flat. And I think the third reason is because I do question a tiny bit whether the Serpentine was the best space to show this work. And this is not a criticism of the Serpentine Gallery itself. It's a fantastic gallery, and I thought the show was as curated as well as it really well as it could be. And Kruger was very much involved in the placing of these works and came over to London to oversee the installation. But I thought, for example, the education room with this work in it was a real missed opportunity. It felt very crammed, and it didn't help that lots of the publicity has this work in a much more, in my view, suitable space. So yeah, there was two reasons really. One, the intensity, the digital nature of it didn't quite live up to what I was maybe hoping for. And secondly, some of the staging in the Serpentine didn't maybe live up as well to show off the works to the best of their ability. But I do recommend you come. I would give this show, drum roll, a 7 out of 10, but it is really worth coming to, partly, as I said, because it is a once in a generation chance to see a display of Kruger's work. And secondly, because the whole experience of going to the Serpentine and the welcome you get there is really valuable. So I do recommend it.
I should say that the show only has a short run. It's on from the 1st of February until the 17th of March. So do get along there quite quickly. I think that's a pity actually, because it could have maybe run till after Easter and got even more people visiting. But anyway, yeah, I do recommend it. As I say, it didn't quite reach the heights, but that doesn't mean in any way it's a bad show. In some ways, I think it's a bit of a it's a bit of a luxury to be able to say that about what is still a strong show. Please, if you enjoyed this video, I do recommend that you have a look at my Women in Revolt video, because there's lots of word art in that show as well, and linked to the feminist message of some of Kruger's work. All of these works have a really strong feminist message. So yeah, do have a look at that video. I'm just putting the link up there now, and don't forget to subscribe to the Art Vlog. Hit that notification bell for loads more reviews of upcoming shows.